Have you ever wondered which of those made for TV Christmas movies that come out every single year are worth your time and effort? Well, look no further. I am going to count down the top 20 of the very best of them of all time. And we're starting right now. Let me set the scene. You're with your family, you're watching TV, someone says, let's watch a cheesy Christmas movie from the Hallmark or Netflix or ABC Family or Lifetime, and you don't know which one to choose. But you don't want to be stuck with some crap, because let's face it, some of these movies simply suck. Okay? Well, what I did was I looked through hundreds of these films from various lists from IMDb, from Netflix, to various independent lists of what are the top made-for-TV television movies that have ever been produced. Now, we're going to limit these to, say, no Christmas carols, no animation, no variety shows like Andy Williams and so forth. We're only going to stick with the ones that have a specific plot. They can be feature-length, or they can be short film, either one, but they can't be any one of the others. Which one of those are the ones that you should watch with your family or without your family? And which ones are the ones that are worth your time and effort? Well, what I did was I compiled this list, I put them together, and we're going to count them down right now, the top 20. Now, there are a couple of honorable mentions that I want to talk about, and we will mention those as well. So, with no further ado, let's start with the first of the honorable mentions. And this is a film from 1953 called A String of Blue Beads. Now, this is a 30-minute short which came out way back when, and it was a collection of other shorts. But this particular one deals with a man who has an issue with, well, I'll let you see it for yourself because it's so short, there's no point in me spoiling anything for you. That's the first honorable mention. The second honorable mention is one that I thought going into this would be one that I would actually want to be higher on this list because I saw this film way back when. It's called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, and it's from 1983. It's about an hour long. It's based on the book by the same title. It's about some kids who come from the other side of the tracks, and they want to be part of their local school's Christmas pageant. And so some of them just force their way in, but through the miracle of Christmas and through that process of becoming part of this particular program, the kids begin to change, and the message of Christmas seeps into them as well. And it's very heartwarming. It's great for the kids, and it's decent, but it's not good enough to crack the top 20. The third honorable mention is a film in 1984 called It Came Upon a Midnight Clear. And this is a film with Mickey Rooney, the legendary Mickey Rooney. And essentially, the nutshell is he dies and he gets a second chance to come back and fulfill a promise to his grandson and also teach the city of New York what it means to be in the Christmas spirit. So these three films were highly rated on many of these lists that I mentioned before, but they just aren't good enough to fit my top 20. So let's start. Top 20 right now. Top 20 now is a movie called Stealing Christmas. This one is cool. It stars Tony Danza from Taxi fame. And this film, from the very beginning, lets you know what it is. It acts like it's a heist film, and there's a lot of tension and drama in the very beginning. It seems to be of a very adult nature in terms of the way they're editing it, and the fact that shots are fired and there's robbery involved, there's crime. And so the premise of this film is Tony Danza's character uses the Christmas season and Santa Claus to hide his identity and to embed himself in a town. It stars Lee Thompson from Back to the Future. And, of course, you can imagine what happens there. But it's really interesting because the themes of this are interesting because the character is an anti-hero of sorts. And he's still a criminal. And criminals do what criminals do. And so how it plays out, I think it's pretty smart. And it doesn't dumb it down for the audience. Number 19 comes to us from 1984. It stars Jacqueline Smith and Art Carney from The Honeymooners and from Charlie's Angels, respectively. This film is about a father who is trying to do his job and do a oil drilling on the North Pole based on his own research that he feels is the right way to do, but it's not working. He has a boss that's telling him to do something differently. Of course, that particular boss is telling him to drill closer to the North Pole, which will destroy Santa's workshop. And so from there, that's the premise of it, and it's dealing with whether or not people believe in Santa Claus or not believe in Santa Claus and the kids and so forth. So it's more of a magical type of adventure. And what's impressive about this film from the 80s is that the way they do the composition with the blue screen and how they do that is pretty high end for television. If you compare that to, let's say, Santa Claus the movie with Dudley Moore, which came around the same time, it's comparable. And so for that point alone, it's really a good film to watch and to admire. Not to mention, it has some good messaging in there as well. It's on my list because it's on a lot of these different various lists as well. So I couldn't simply ignore it because I did enjoy it. So it deserves to be on this list, but wasn't quite my ultimate favorite, as we'll see further on. Number 18 is a film which is more serious called A Dog Named Christmas. This story is about a family who has a child who is mentally challenged, but he's an adult and he wants to be an adult. He wants to drive, he wants to get a job, but the dad, who's a little overprotective, isn't quite sure, and he has a hang up over a certain item or a certain creature or animal, in this case a dog, and you learn about that. And see, he's reluctant to give what his son really wants is a dog for Christmas. And so it's that conflict between him wanting to grow up to be a responsible adult, even though he's not mentally to where most people are. And it deals with the father who's trying to protect him from trying to be disappointed the way he may or may not have been with his experiences with dogs. And of course, the mom comes in to kind of play both sides and see both perspectives. So it's pretty touching. And it's one thing about this film is from the very beginning, again, the director takes you through a narrative of this dog. You're kind of seeing it through the dog's eyes and the kid's eyes. And it flows pretty well. And I think it's very enjoyable. Great for the family. And, it is a little bit of an emotional pull, but that's what Christmas movies are. Number 17 comes to us from the year 1986, and it's called The Christmas Snow. And this film is a little bit of a campy film, but it deals with a person who's a Scrooge-like character who is trying to upfit his building from a candy store, which has been that way since the 1800s, to be a high-end 24-hour laundromat. And of course, the tenant of that doesn't want that. She feels that the community doesn't want that either, but he doesn't care. And so something happens with that. And this is a story really of forgiveness, of grace, and acceptance. And there's some two kids that are involved that she's actually mentoring. I think she's actually the foster she's the guardian of these two children, and you're seeing this also through their perspective as well. And so it's really the big pull is at the end, but I'll let you see it for yourself, which is why it's on this list. The common themes of faith, forgiveness, and grace come through this very strongly, especially at the end. And so it's one of the reasons why The Christmas Carol is one of the most popular stories ever written, because of those themes being carried through. Number 16 is 3 Days. This came out in 2001, only a few months after 9/11. Now, what is interesting about this particular film is that the marketing for this was really, really pushed by, I believe this was ABC Family. And the trailer basically tells you what's happening. And what it is you have a guy who's doing really well. He's a Wall Street guy, and he's very successful. And his wife dies. They have an argument, and she dies. And so he's given the opportunity to relive the 3 days leading up to that, and allows him to see what he really has and to not take things for granted and to live life in the moment at its fullest. And this movie's pretty smart, and it doesn't end the way you think it might end, because the 3 days is only supposed to be for him, and she's going to die at the end of it anyway. But he at least gets a chance to see. Now, I'm not spoiling anything again, because this is in the trailer, but this is one of the few movies, one of the first movies that came out, which actually pushed Christmas movies of this kind of nature at a marketing level. And so when it came out, it was kind of like, with 9/11 happening only a few months prior, it really kind of went under the radar. People really didn't see it. But I think now people are rediscovering this movie because it is really good. And it plays into those It's a Wonderful Life themes that is very prevalent in a lot of these movies. Okay, so at number 15, we have a movie from 1999. It's called The Season for Miracles. It stars the great Oscar-winning Patty Duke. And the story is about a woman who is an aunt to two children, whose mother is in prison, who's about to be locked away for a long time, but yet these two kids have nobody else to go to, and they're about to be in foster care, and potentially even split apart. So this is the story of a woman who's trying her best to keep the family together against all odds, against all legal options that she has, and it happens to be a situation where, there's a love interest who happens to be a police officer, and you can just put that all together for yourself. It's a little bit on the nose, especially when you look at the poster, because you can kind of say, okay, I kind of know what's going on here. And that being said, they kind of spoil some things for you. So there's not a lot of tension in this film. But when you see the hoops that this woman goes through to protect her family, her niece and nephew, it's pretty impressive. And it's well acted. And again, we have an Oscar-winning actress at the head of this, and it's just fantastic. At number 14, we have The House Without a Christmas Tree from 1972. It's another one of these films, such as A Dog Named Christmas. We have a father who's trying to protect the child from being hurt because of their own personal experiences and potential hang-ups of whatever. In this case, it's not a dog, but it's a tree. And this one is way darker in terms of tone, in terms of what that all means. And it hits you hard at the end because, again, it's one of these things where these themes of grace, forgiveness, of even mercy and perspective and gratitude comes into play. And it's dealing with his daughter. And she's a little nerdy. She's kind of an outsider. And so she's looking to her dad for approval in many, many ways. But he's such a stern person. And so when we see things happen in the story, it really, really brings the point home of how important a father has in the lives of his children, especially his daughter. And so, again, in this case, too, you also have a mother who's also trying to placate the two as well. So there's some tension there across the board. So from 1972, this movie is called The House Without a Christmas Tree. And this, by the way, was the number 2 ranked IMDb movie for Christmas movies, for made-for-TV productions out there. So I don't have it quite that high, but I can see why many, many people do have it that high. Number 13 comes a movie that really pissed me off, really in a good way, but more of in a fun way. But it's really aggravating. This movie is called The Christmas Secret. And The Christmas Secret is about a woman who is trying to get by. She loses her job, and she's trying to take care of her children, but she can't because she can't find a home to live in because she lost her job and her car is broken down. And there's a comedy of errors that are happening here. And if you remember, or if you are old enough to remember, or if you've seen films or TV shows where it's kind of like a Keystone Cops kind of thing, we have shows like Three's Company or I Love Lucy, where there's a plot and you have everyone in the audience knows what's going on, where the pieces are, but the people in the scenes don't know. And you just say, if you can just tell them what's going on, the whole thing can be resolved because it's all simple. Well, this happens a lot in this film, and they really drive this thing home. And the problem with this type of approach of storytelling is, number one, you make your audience really upset, like it did me. And so in order for it to work, you have to pay it off strongly once you have that reveal. In this case, they do that, and it works. But you have to suffer through 3/4 of the movie of like, come on, seriously? Really? But all of those pieces come together very, very nicely, very much on the nose. But again, this is Christmas, so you're going to have that kind of stuff. And the payoff is really, really rewarding, and it's humorous. But it goes even a little level deeper than that, which is why it's so hard. Which is why it's so high on this list. You can't just have a reveal and have it work. It has to work at a different level, even below that. As you see what I'm talking about. Number 12 also comes from 2014, and it's called Signed, Sealed, Delivered for Christmas. Now this one is really unique, and it's a really, really fun film. This particular one involves a team of about 4 people who work for the United States Postal Service, and their job is to make sure that all of the letters to Santa Claus get answered. It's part of their dead letter office or initiative. Well, it's Christmas Eve, obviously, or Christmas week, so they're trying to wrap up the last letters. But this particular letter comes to them from a girl who writes to God to help her family and to help her mother get better, because she's not well. She's in the hospital. And so the team takes on the initiative of trying to find out who this girl is by investigative measures. And this team, mind you, is a bunch of nerds in different ways. So some people are good with forensics. Some people are good with just knowing maps and places and things and GPS. And so this is a collective team of like super nerds who are working on this case. And it's very much a mystery. And it goes into some deeper themes as well, as usual. But it's really fun. It pays off really well. It doesn't insult the audience's intelligence. Characters don't do what you don't think they would do. They do what they're supposed to do, and they don't force a lot of these relationships, which is what you see in a lot of these shows, where they just tell you this is what's going to happen regardless. We're going to make it fit. Well, not here. It works well, and it plays out. It's very smart, and it's really fun. If you like mysteries, if you like that sort of thing, you'll like Signed, Sealed, Delivered for Christmas. At number 11, we have a movie called The Most Wonderful Time of the Year, and it stars Henry Winkler from Happy Days, Fonzie, and this film stars him mainly, and he is playing an uncle who is trying to matchmake to his niece, a gentleman that he meets haphazardly in the airport, or I believe the train station, and comedy ensues from there. So it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's funny, whimsical, and has a lot of cool social engineering type episodes that go on in this, which makes it fun to watch. Okay, now we're into the top 10 now. The top 10, first one here is a movie that I initially thought would be high on the list, and it does end up playing out. I didn't think it would be this high after watching a lot of these other films, because I rewatched this just yesterday, and it's called Eloise at Christmas Time. It's a Disney made-for-TV program, and it's fantastic. The lead on this, the girl who plays this role, her name is Sophia. Her last name, I don't want to try and pronounce it, but she is excellent. I mean, she drives this whole narrative of her living in this penthouse in New York, and she, has all this knowledge about the people in the hotel. It's based on the book Eloise, by the way. So, and the knowledge of the people in the hotel, her relationship with her nanny, relationship with the elevator operator, her relationship with everybody, the relationship with one of the cooks or one of the waiters inside the hotel diner. Just so happens that he is friends with another person who happens to be getting married in the hotel. But all in all, on the surface, it seems like you have this girl who's fantastic, actress-wise, and also just, whatever. But she's also helping other people, but it's more about what is it for her to make Christmas special? And that's the core underlying theme of this film, is what makes Eloise happy at Christmas. And I will say this about it: it's a Disney film. It's really, really well written. It just looks fantastic. It's a really good production that you would expect to see, in a movie theater. So yeah, it's really, really that good. So number 10, Eloise at Christmas Time. Number 9, The Gathering, 1977. This is a film I saw late. I saw this film 2 days ago. It was on every list I saw. It didn't look like anything I wanted to see. The trailers looked depressing, but I ended up paying $2 on Amazon to stream it, and I'm so happy I did. Now, the first couple minutes of it, I'm like, oh no, I just wasted $2 on this thing, because it's kind of dopey. It's 70s, got the music going on, and it's kind of dated in that perspective. But the crux of the story is this: Ed Asner plays a guy who has built his entire life around his business, and he has done very well in his business. But along that way, he has estranged everybody around him: his wife, his daughter, his son, his son-in-law, and his other son. And so the crux of it is he wants to reach out to them because he's dying. He has less than 90 days to live. So he sets out to visit each one of them. But because he can't, because of his health, his wife, who is estranged, they're separated, they're not divorced, decides to have a gathering at the house so he can reconcile all the differences, hopefully, in that one weekend. And the challenges of getting the people there together play a big role. But once you start seeing the exposition for each of the children who, for whatever reason, want to come or not want to come, you begin to realize how challenging this would be for him and how powerful it would be if he's able to pull it off. And so this is also one that really, really pulls at you, because it has some deep underlying dark themes, again, with the grace, with the forgiveness, with the perspective, with the love language of how he expresses love versus how people perceive that love from him. It's really, really good. 1972, you would think that they're going to, I'm sorry, 1972? No. 1977, you would think this film would be a little bit hokey, but it's not. In fact, this movie here set the tone for a lot of these more serious Christmas movies that come later, that deal with deep social issues, that you didn't see a lot of that in Christmas movies prior to that. And so The Gathering is definitely worth your time. I recommend you highly watch it. It's a powerful film. And the last thing I'll say about it is that it does not insult the intelligence of the viewer. It lets it breathe. It doesn't force things on you. It lets you think about it. And when you finish watching, you're like, wow, you're still thinking about it, because you wonder what's happening here, what's going on after the fact. It's really, really good writing. Okay, next up is The Christmas Box from 1995. It stars John Boy from The Waltons. And so bringing the character played by Richard Thomas, who's a dad, who's actually an entrepreneur, who he and his business partner have started a small business to produce ski equipment, are looking to expand to another store against his wife's will, because that's not what they agreed upon. And so it's a situation between balancing life and work and dealing with a woman who is a very, very stern, a very, very structured woman from an older time where things had to be done a certain way. And so, again, I keep saying this over and over again, but these movies from here on out have these undertones of just, and this one really has some serious dark undertones in it. And one of the things about Christmas movies like this is that you have these dark themes juxtaposed against happy-go-lucky, wonderful time themes. And so when you have these movies, you don't know whether or not you want to laugh, cry, jump out of a window. I mean, because some of these movies are really nerve-wracking, and you just don't know what to do, which is why I think they're so effective, which is why I think Christmas movies now are becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because these stories are just so more compelling, and people want to have that hope against their feelings of loneliness, despair, and so forth. And this movie is a perfect example of that. And the Christmas box it's a good one, and it deserves to be as high as it is. Number 7 is A Christmas Memory. It stars Eric Lloyd, the little guy from the Santa Claus movies. And it also stars Patty Duke. Again, she's in that one as well. And Patty Duke plays a sister, one of 3 sisters who are in charge of Eric Lloyd's character because his parents passed away. So they're basically fostering him. And the thing is, you have the Patty Duke character and the Eric Lloyd character are best buddies. If you've seen Harold and Maude, think that, minus the romance deal there. But the fact that, she's risque and she's not really grown up, right? Even though she's in her 70s, and he's, not even a teenager hardly yet, and he's not grown up, obviously. But there are 2 peas in the pod, and there's factions that want to split that up. There's factions that want him to grow up. There's factions that want her to grow up, and there's a push to get them separated. And this is actually based on a true story, I believe. This is a Truman Capote story. And so he wrote this story as a self-autobiography about himself. And so it's really, really well written. It doesn't have the happiest of endings, but this is probably one of the more true-to-life stories on this list. But everything being said, it's powerful. And the messages that are here can be learned for all of us to either take those and to take them to heart so that we can better our lives and better the lives around other people. Number 6 is a film from Germany called Stille Nacht. It is a translation to Silent Night. So it came out in 2012, and it's based on the true story of the origins of the song Silent Night. And this is a cool one because you get to see the opposition that this young priest had to go through to get this song made. And he made the song simply because he wanted to let the people in his congregation understand and be close to God. At the time, everything, and this is in Germany, at the time, everyone, this is around 1800s, this is the early 19th century, 1818 to be exact. They basically weren't teaching people the Word of God. They weren't teaching them the gospel. They were teaching them in Latin, and no one understood the language, and so it was all pomp and circumstances, and the priest was like, look, dudes, this is not what Jesus came for. Jesus came because he wanted us to enter into a relationship with him, not to sit back from afar. And there was a push and pull because they didn't want the riffraff coming into the church. And he's like, well, Jesus, went to the house of tax collectors and all this. And so there's that going on. So he basically fought this battle at the risk of his own health, at the risk of others. And things fell apart around him. And he was brought to conviction and brought down to his own knees to determine how far he's going to go with this. And so this movie is really, really, really good. It's filmed brilliantly. It's acted brilliantly. You got to do reading. It's hard to find, but if you look on YouTube, if you type in the actual German word Stille Nacht and not Silent Night, because that's the English version, you'll find it. If you look online, you're going to come up with the 2012 version, which is a horror film, which was not the same one. So go on YouTube, type in Stille Nacht, and click on the subtitles are there as well. You can enjoy this film for free. At number 5, we have The Christmas Wish. This is a film that's probably my favorite film of all, simply because I watched it more than any of them on this list by far. I've watched it for the past 15 years, every year for Christmas Eve. And so I know it very, very well. It stars Neil Patrick Harris and Debbie Reynolds, Princess Leia's mom, Singing in the Rain fame. And it's a movie simply, again, I repeat myself again, about dark undertones, themes that just aren't something we want to talk about, especially in a Christmas movie. But in this particular case, Neil Patrick Harris plays the grandson who had been orphaned, who had lived with his grandparents for many years. His grandfather passed away, but his grandfather, during his time, had a company where he would lease apartments to people. So he was like a landlord. And he did things a certain way. Neil Patrick Harris goes off to New York. He does his own thing in the new school way, bottom line, dollars, cents, whatever. Whereas Granddad did things in a more personal way. Similar to the way you see this in It's a Wonderful Life, how you have James Stewart's character and his father's character, how they try to treat people well, where Mr. Potter didn't care. Similarly to that, in that kind of way of thinking at it. But anyway, long story short, Debbie Reynolds' character finds a journal for her husband who passed away, Neil Patrick Harris's grandfather. In that, he's giving letters and thank yous and gifts to a woman that she never knew about. And she wants to know who this woman is. And so she charges Neil Patrick Harris that for Christmas, you need to find out who this woman is and why my husband did this. And so now you have a grandson who basically put this man on a pedestal, having to research his history as to why he's writing letters and giving gifts to another woman. So I'll leave that there. It's a mystery. Check it out for yourself. I'll watch it again in next week probably. So it's definitely worth it. Definitely worth being at number 5. Number 4 is 2002 Silent Night. It's based on the Christmas truce, which happened in the Verdun forest in Europe during the Battle of the Bulge, where Germany did a countermeasure toward the West and occupied a lot of the Allied forces' territory, causing a massive battle there. But in doing so, you put a lot of people in close confines that are not supposed to be there. Linda Hamilton plays a woman who is with her son, living in a cottage in the occupied area behind enemy lines, even though she's German. It's been whatever. And now she has to deal with 2 factions living in her house because they're both using her house for headquarters, the Germans and the Americans. And we get to see how they interact with each other at a level that supersedes anything that we normally do on a day-to-day basis, because these people utterly hate each other. And this film starts off with dead bodies and gunfire. And you know from the very beginning that this is not going to be a typical Christmas movie. And it's also a true story. And so you also get to see that. You also get to see what makes people in war tick. What is the motivation for them to be in war or to fight for their country? And what is the perception of someone who's just killed one of their friends? And so it's really, again, I go back to those themes again. We see that there as well. And it plays out in the same way, but in a shocking way that you probably wouldn't expect to see. So this is called Silent Night from 2002. Number 3 on the list is The Crossing, starring Jeff Daniels as George Washington. This movie deals with the story with the crossing of Delaware River, where George Washington was desperate to have anything happen positively for his army, because it was December of 1776. Most of the enlistments for his men were going to be expired come New Year's Day, and if that happened and nothing changed, the army would disappear, and the army would also no longer be able to fight for the American cause, and we would no longer have America as we know it. So it's desperate times for the army of the Continental Army. It's a hard time for George Washington. So he comes up with a plan to invade the Hessian encampment across the river so that he can surprise them to get supplies, material, and food, and also to increase recruitment for the following year. So it was a desperate play. And anyone who knows history knows that this was almost an impossible deal, considering what he had to go against. And he did this on Christmas Day, which is why I consider this a Christmas movie. He used Christmas for that very purpose because he thought that the Hessians, German soldiers, German mercenaries, paid soldiers, would be drunk and be partying and would not be able to fight given their condition. And so Jeff Daniels' portrayal of George Washington was phenomenal. If you liked his portrayal of Lawrence Chamberlain in Gettysburg, then you'll like his portrayal of George Washington here. where he shows the vulnerability of the man, the temper of the man, the sternness of the man, the stubbornness of the man, and the total gumption of the man. And it comes through, and when you see this, when they give you out the plan and show you how it's going to happen, what's at stake, you'll be on board too. Number 2 sounds like a chick flick. It comes to us from 2004, and it's called An American Girl Holiday. And this particular film, I would never have thought to be number 2 on my all-time list, but let me tell you, this movie's off the charts for several reasons. It tells the tale of a girl. She is in upstate New York, and she's well-to-do. She has her family are pretty wealthy, and so she has maids and people who come and go, and or hired servants and so forth. And so it's her willingness to relate to the people of that time. This is of a period piece. This is going back to 1900s, right around the advent of the automobile. So I'm saying right before World War I, right in there, World War I, 1910, somewhere in there. But the thing about this is, it's her willingness outside of the culture status to go and associate and friend the children of the servants that are there, and in a genuine way. And it's her commitment to the friendships that she has and her loyalty she has that drives this whole story and takes her to places that she never thought she would have gone. There is a lot of women's lib in this as well, which is perfectly good. I think it works because it's applicable. Women were not allowed to do a lot of different things back then, and it took women like this to step up and show the ability to have guts, determination, and to push forward regardless of the odds. It's real. It's you feel it. The relationships, the people that are around her, her uncle who travels the world, who she ends up going to live with. I don't want to spoil too much of anything else, but the way this drives through and the way her determination and her smartness, her brilliance through all this really pays off at the end. It's a film that I could watch over and over and over again. It's well acted. It stars Mia Farrow, and so it's got a great cast as well. And so I don't see any flaws in this film at all. This film easily could have been released in the movie theater, and I don't see any reason why it couldn't have been. Okay, so we reached number 1, and if we look back on the list we just talked about, we saw movies that were whimsical, movies that were fantasies, movies that were mysteries, movies that were romances, movies that were outright fun in general, movies that dealt with the deep, dark human condition. But this particular film just deals with how to deal with tragedy in people's lives. And this one is called November Christmas. Came out in 2010. And it stars Sam Elliott. And it's number 1 for a reason. Number 1, this movie could easily be released theatrically, in my opinion, in terms of the scope of it, the wide angle shots, the acting, the script, the believability in the characters, the motivation of all the characters. And I'll tell you right now, Sam Elliott drives this movie. He's not the main character in this. He's a supporting actor. But he is the one that drives this whole narrative that gives you, that lets you understand why it's so important for him to do what he's doing. And it just elevates the movie to a level that I was not expecting. This movie is really hard to watch because the subject matter is about a child who is dying of cancer and a mother and a father who are trying to deal with that reality. How are they going to treat her? How are they going to make her, how are they going to comfort her? There's 2 approaches to that. There's pressure on the relationship because of that. She has a younger brother who is scared. He doesn't want to get cancer either. They're dealing with that. Then you have the Sam Elliott character and the town, how they're affected. And the lead actress, the child, the girl who's playing the role of the girl with cancer is fantastic. Dynamite. She's great. And it's through her eyes you see the pain that's going through and the despair, but at the same time, her positive attitude of how she can pursue this and get through it. And it's a film that's hard to watch. I have to say, it's hard to get through. That being said, do not avoid seeing this film because of that. It's totally worth it, and you'll be really, really happy you did get through this film because of the message that it gives you. So, November Christmas, #1 movie I've ever seen that's made for TV Christmas movie. That's not a Christmas Carol rendition or not an animated version. This is the top of the line for me, and it would be hard pressed for anyone to come to me with a movie that's of this level or better. But you tell me, is there a movie that you have that you think that I would like? Comment below. Let me know. I'd be happy to watch it. There's a few days left before Christmas. If there's a link that I can watch it on, and if it's I can stream it, I will definitely check it out, and I will even do an addendum to this to see where it fits along this line, because there's tons of other movies out there. I just chose the top 50 and then narrowed it down from there based on various different lists. So they're all opinionated. As we all know, movies are subjective. There's nothing, you can't prove one way or the other that a movie's good or a movie's bad. It's all your opinion. So I try my best to articulate the reasons why I like a movie. That way a discussion can be had, and thereby no one's really taking offense to it because we're not saying your movie sucks for no reason. And so with that, that's my top 20 list, including my 3 honorable mentions. Comment below, subscribe if you like, and hope everyone here has a happy, wonderful Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and safe travels, and God bless. Till next time.